What's up, y'all? It's your boy Niner Faithful. How's everybody doing? Hope everyone had a blessed week. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Niner Faithful Radio. I have a special guest in the studio with me today, my boy Harrison. What's up, Harrison? How you doing, bro?
Good. How are you?
So, normally what we like to do every time we have an in-studio guest is we like to have the guest tell us their faithful story. How did you become a Niner fan? Maybe it was a certain game or something of that nature.
I've never been asked that question, but I love that. I love the story I have for it. So when I was really, really young, not really, really young, but I guess 7, 8, whatever, I didn't really know football, but it was always on, part of the culture, whatever. And my dad was a big Steeler fan, and my mom was a huge Niner fan, just the way their families were. And I remember being 8 or 9 or whatever, and there was a Niner-Steelers game on, and both my parents are rooting for their respective teams, and around that time, my parents were also kind of preparing their divorce too. So it was. I remember a specific game. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but a specific game where we were playing and they got heated at each other because of the game, and then it led into like full blown, marital problems and stuff. And so from there, it was kind of funny because I was like almost picking a side in the divorce and picking a side in which football team I was going to like.
It is.
And there's no way I was following a team that was from Pittsburgh when you got, the Niners right here. So, that's my story.
That's the way we love it. We love it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and skip the weekly Facebook poll. We went ahead and heard Harrison's faithful story and everything like that. Today we're going to go ahead and get into Jimmie, Dante. We have penalties. I really am concerned about these penalties. We're going to go ahead and get into Adrian Colbert, Tarvarius Moore, and Drake Greenlaw, and then we're going to go ahead and get into a little stock up, stock down type of segment. So as we start off with Jimmie, because I think this will kind of be the shortest little segment that we do, we don't want to bash on Jimmie. We talked in the pre-show meeting, both Harrison and I are not down on Jimmie. We have not seen anything that makes us think, oh my God, we need to sign Kirk Cousins in the offseason. There's nothing that I feel that really what I personally got was that he looked like he didn't play football in 330 days.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't do anything for 330 days, which I think if you listen to Kyle Shanahan's post-game press conference, he talked about the fact that really Jimmie hasn't played a lot of football.
Right. Well, I think that's what kind of Shanahan was almost expecting. I kind of not necessarily a 1 for 6, 0.0 passer rating with a pick, whatever. Not necessarily that, but I think Shanahan kind of expected him to have a rough outing, kind of get his legs back under him. Kind of experience. Okay, this is the real league action again, because. Like you touched on, you could work out every day. You could throw a ball every day with your buddy. But playing in the NFL in real live game situation, Mance hasn't done that for 300 days. He's not gonna be pure form. And I think that's where the fans almost expected, the return of Garoppolo. And that's where I feel like there's a little bit of coercion there. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think the thing that sometimes a lot of people never understand is that, we live in such a small window society, and so sometimes we think is I remember I use examples, of course, as we all know. So the best example I could give up was the NFC Championship game, the 81 NFC, the catch, as we all know. That really wasn't a great game.
Right,
we turned the ball over 5 times. I mean, you look back and you're just really like sometimes. There's some points where you even look at it like, how the hell were we really even in this game?
Right. There's two drives where Joe looked like he didn't even want to play in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So those were major factors of the game that, like as you were saying.
So to me, is as we wrap this up and everything, and so we can get into other things more. Is if we're still having, I looked at Harrison and I said, if we're still having this conversation come Sunday, when we do the wrap for the Kansas City game, which I think will be our biggest one, and obviously we all know that's as far as the starters are concerned, are the biggest, game that we have.
Mm-hmm.
If we're still having the same, question, then maybe there's some time for concern, and by concern, look, I am not going to give a judgment on Jimmy Garoppolo as a franchise quarterback after this season till I would say at least halfway through the season.
Oh,
yeah. So, there will be some concerns from some struggle. If we're having the same conversation, come Sunday, then maybe a 350-yard, 4-touchdown pass against Tampa Bay isn't realistic. Maybe expecting some struggling out of the gate would be expected, and that might cause some issues in itself, because I think that when we're all the positive aspect all the faithful are feeling as far as playoffs or at least being a fringe playoff team combat to with a hard start. I mean, we went ahead and break down our roster. We'll go our win schedule. We'll go ahead and get that towards the end so the faithful can hear your opinion about it. But a lot of our wins we both have coming pretty early in the season, and so if we struggle out of the gate, to get some wins, that could have some dire consequences towards November and December, where some of these games get a little bit more challenging. So now that moving on from Jimmie, now Dante, I guess we'll get in the penalties real quick. I think that also this kind of ties into Jimmie. And Harrison was talking this up, and I think it was a great point when you brought up the fact that, I want to see him have a drive that, doesn't end when it's a 3rd and 15. And it's, hey, you know what? If it was 3rd and 3, we could get that 3rd and 3. The last series he had, they essentially had two downs.
Right.
He essentially had 2 downs because it was 1st and 15.
And then it was...
Then became 2nd and 26. And then they essentially just said that there's no point. And
it halfback dive was the next play.
Yeah, halfback dive.
3rd and 15, so,
Exactly. So I think that was a very excellent point when you said is that, let's get Jimmie in some situations that I understand, 3rd and 15 is a down in this league. He will face some 3rd and 15s. But, the offense felt very choppy. And to me, I'm a firm believer of it's never how it starts, it's never have you finished. And I've watched too many times in my 30 years of watching football that where quarterbacks start games garbage and all of a sudden it clicks. When we first met, we talked about the fact that nobody ever talks about Colin Kaepernick's first touchdown pass that playoff game against Green Bay was a pick six. Nobody ever talks about that. So perfect example. It's not how you start. It's how it's how you finished.
Right.
So the penalties, I think that it ties into Jimmie. It ties into the evaluation of everybody, and I think that's the hardest thing, and why sometimes you can't take too much away from preseason, and coaches will tell you a lot more. You learn a lot more from practice because you can adjust situations. You can. If Jimmie was going to be sacked on that play, they're just going to really have him continue to go through the motion, throw the ball, and the play will continue. That's obviously something you can't do in a game. So, I would say calm down. I would say before we start to even think about struggling or, starting, I know I've even seen a couple... Nick Mullins should be our starters, going around and everything. And as we all know, those who listen to Niner Faithful Radio know we love Nick the Raider Killer Mullins. I have loved Nick the Raider Killer Mullins.
BDN Nick.
BDN. No, so Harrison hasn't heard this, but I met him at training camp. And so I asked him, I said, I said, Nick, BDN is, whatever, we all love it. I said, well, what do you think about Nick the Raider Killer Mullins? And he started laughing. He goes, well, and I was like, he loves it. I was like, come on, baby, you got to, I think he was more shy about the fact that he didn't want to get around that he's, Nick the Raider Killer Mullins.
Yeah.
You've always, I think billboard material is real. And, I think sometimes it's, people, you would think getting paid millions of dollars is a motivation enough, and these are professional athletes. But, sometimes it takes that little extra oomph to get it going and everything. And I'm a firm believer in, of I don't want to say message sending, but, the famous story I know as a Giants fan, and we'll get back on the topic after this, this quick, digression. As a Giants fan, the 2002 World Series is the shit of nightmares for me.
Right.
And
Understandably,
so,
any Giants fan.
Yeah. And so, I remember walking to Sports Fever here at Oak Ridge Mall and literally asking them when they're going to have our World Series T-shirts ready. And, I really think that Dusty Baker flipping the ball to Russ Ortiz, when he went to take him out, I really think that kind of woke the Angels. I really think that. Now, I'm not saying that, I would think that they're professional athletes and this is the championship. I think they would have enough motivation, I think they would just be motivated enough by being professional athletes. But you know what? Sometimes you better let sleeping dogs lie.
Right.
Right. Sometimes the worst thing you can do is give somebody else, more motivation. So, to me, it's these penalties have to stop. They have to. I don't care if Jimmy G played football in a year, hasn't played in a year, played 3 days, whatever it is. You cannot continuously come down, stay on the field with the 3rd and 13, 3rd and 15. The penalties have to stop. I mean, there was a play that I literally think it was a touchdown. I want to say it was a touchdown or at least a first down that a penalty literally took away yesterday. And so, my opinion is I've always felt like this, and I don't know how you feel, Harrison, and we'll go ahead and let you give your thoughts on the penalties, but I'm a firm believer of that, you have your few elite teams that are just better than everybody else and have just more talent on their football team.
Per year, obviously.
Per year.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
There's just going to be teams. Obviously, the Patriots, they've done it for years.
Right.
But, you just have your teams that are just better than everybody else. You have your teams that are just the worst teams in the league and have the least of talent.
Right.
But majority of the league is about 8-8. And what separates your 6-10, 5-11, 4-12 teams from your 8-8, 7-9, 10-6 teams is about few plays a year. Probably about a handful of plays a year. And so in a sport where your season's literally dictated by maybe 5 to 10 plays, and most games are settled by 8 or fewer points, one play can literally mean the difference between a championship and not. Mm-hmm. Going from a 3rd and 2 to a 3rd and or from a 3rd and manageable to a 3rd and 15 because of a false start, because of a holding. Mm-hmm. Well, holding. See, I never like to blame players too much for holding because you can call holding on every play.
Yeah.
And I think literally what Sherman's teaching our defensive backs is hold on every play because they're not going to call it. They're just not going to call PI or defensive holding on every single snap. They're just not going to do it. Now, I would say be careful on when you do it now because now those plays are challengeable.
Well, and that fine line is so incredibly gray.
Yeah.
Not a single team out there kind of knows what the NFL is, how their consistency is gonna stand.
This is an overreaction because let's put it this way. I think that it is an overreaction, but what was the NFL supposed to do? You had the wrong team playing in the Super Bowl.
Right. And everybody knows it. Even the team that's in the Super Bowl
knows it.
They admit it, and they say it should have been a PI. So, when that happens, what are they going to do?
You have to do something.
You can't not do something.
Yeah, you have to. I agree. You can't have a championship. Now, I would like to think, cool, where's that rule after fucking Michael Crabtree's manhandled in the end zone?
Right.
But, hey, we move on. Not really. Fuck that. I'll never get over Super Bowl 47. So, now, this is where I think the show's going to get a little interesting because this is where Harrison and I tend to, I don't want to say disagree, but we tend to separate when we get to the receivers, and specifically Dante Pettis. I'm not saying Dante Pettis is a bust, but I think these people who are Dante Pettis is going to have 1,000 yards and he's the next coming of Jerry Rice, need to, slow the brakes. I personally think he just doesn't have enough dog in him. Now, I will think that he will be productive. So if Dante Pettis has 1,000 yards, that won't surprise me because he has a clearly elite route running and separation ability.
And the speed.
And the speed.
Footwork.
And footwork and brains, I will believe Harrison did soften my stance a little bit when we went down and broke down the Jimmie to Dante touchdown against Minnesota last year.
Yeah, week 1.
Week 1, that really overall that was just an amazing play, and that's personally, I guess Harrison said that's what sold him on Jimmy G. Cool.
Yep.
I was sold a lot sooner than that, and we dissected it in our pre-show meeting, but just to kind of see where we're at. But to me, I think it'll be productive, but I think it'll be Shanahan production. I think that essentially you can almost stick it. This is why we essentially have been able to find running backs who a week ago were, package handlers for UPS, and stick them in. They rush for 150 yards. Is because it's just Shanahan's offense. The Shanahan's that So I believe that because Kyle Shanahan is Dante Pettis' head coach and essentially his offensive coordinator, and he can get open and he can run routes, I think he will be productive. Just given the football, if he can do his job and catch the football, then he'll produce. Just because he'll be open.
Okay. And you think that's directly accredited to Kyle Shanahan's?
Kyle Shanahan's ability to call and to scheme up a defense and everything, and of course Dante Pettis' ability to get open.
So I'm going to agree with you and ask you a question. I'm going to agree with you because I think Kyle Shanahan, the reason why he separates himself as a coach, even though he's only coached 22 games or 32 games, 10-22 record, by the way.
Yeah.
But the reason why he's still talked about as an elite coach with that in his repertoire and his history or whatever is because he's proven to take out the best of these players. Yeah. So you have someone like Dante Pettis, and he's got this unique skill set or whatever. Kyle Shanahan's going to find the tiniest bits about him that separates him and gives him the edge, and that's kind of what I see and what we see and what we were talking about with Jalen Hurd.
Yes,
and even Deebo Samuel. They have this extra factor, this extra aspect to their game. They're already dogs. They're dogs.
Yeah.
But then they have some on top of it. Like if you're Kyle Shanahan, you're smiling with
Jalen Hurd, I literally felt that you gave a mad scientist like a Frankenstein monster to work with. Literally, that I think that if we ever get to football that doesn't have a position, just doesn't have
positionless football,
positionless football, it will be because of Kyle Shanahan. Because we call Juice, Kyle's Juszczyk. We call him a fullback, but what is he really? He's really just an offensive weapon.
He's a wide receiver.
He's a wide receiver. He's a running back. He's a fullback. He's a tight end. Hell, wouldn't surprise me if somehow he'll convince Shanahan to let him be a quarterback. The man just does everything.
Yeah.
So I literally think that Jalen Hurd's position doesn't matter because he's going to be lined up all over the field.
Yeah.
So his position doesn't really matter. Now, to get into more of the receivers and what we have here in our notes and what we went over a little bit and everything like that is essentially we have Marquise Goodwin, Dante Pettis, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Hurd, and Trent Taylor all as locks. Now, as we all know that, Trent Taylor did injure his foot. I think that Nothing But Niners went ahead and had him on earlier this season, but I think it was Locked On 49ers had him on recently, and the Pro Football Doctor used to work with he does the Pro Football Doc podcast or something like that. He does a podcast. He used to be the head doctor for the Chargers.
Oh, okay.
And so I really respect his medical opinion, and he of course did qualify this by saying he hasn't personally examined any of the players that he's talking about, so he of course doesn't have their charts or anything to know. But I think that Trent Taylor, I don't think it'll be week 1. I think we'll probably be looking for a week 2 type of return for Trent Taylor, but he'll be on this. Now, where we getting is 6 or 7. Now, the biggest debate, so we essentially think it's coming down between Jordan Matthews, Richie James, and Kendrick Bourne. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that we all know that Adam, the normal co-host for Niner Faithful Radio, is the driver of the Kendrick Bourne bandwagon, and I'm riding shotgun on that mug. Yes, I really ride shotgun on the Kendrick. I love me some KB.
I'm right there in the back seat on that one.
Yeah. We all love us some KB. So, but we're being realistic about this and trying to take off our fan hats and put on our analyst hats. So, when you're looking at Jordan Matthews, Richie James, and Kendrick Bourne, okay, you're Jordan Matthews. I think essentially we came to the conclusion he's I don't want to say irrelevant. Like I'm speaking about a human being, and no human being is irrelevant. Please, Mr. Matthews, you're the GOAT. You're my favorite athlete's cousin. If you ever want to come on the show, please come on the show. Do not take this anyway towards you as a person. We love you. God bless you, brother. But Jalen Hurts made Jordan Matthews expendable.
Not only that, Jalen Hurts has made Jordan Matthews' job 10 times harder.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, you referenced Jeremy Curley.
Yeah.
Right?
He's Jeremy Curley.
And he came in and we're like, oh, okay, cool. We got a red zone threat and a really physical, big body in Jordan Matthews. That's cool. That's excellent. Now we add in Jalen Hurts. Maybe even a little bit Deebo Samuel in that discussion, and it pushes Jordan Matthews on the outside. One way or the other, he's definitely moved down a little bit with the addition of the rookies.
Yeah, I think he definitely got Jeremy Curley. I think you couldn't expect to go. You don't go in the draft expecting to get anybody. So of course it was very obvious they targeted Jalen Hurts. Mm-hmm. And probably the conference now. Of course I must speak on the rumor of that. Essentially, Jordan Matthews was promised a roster spot. It only makes sense to me because why would he give Trent Taylor all that money for 81? But whatever. Beyond that, I think essentially what really happened is they said, hey, we got this kid Jalen Hurts, targeted, and he could be in, and he could, make. But let's go ahead and be sure.
Yeah.
If he comes in, because let's not think that Jordan Matthews is we love him and everything like that, but. He only played a receiver for a year, so there was no great expectation to think that he was going to come in and be ready to play.
Yeah.
So you had to almost even when
injuries as well.
Injuries as well. So when you came in to even once you got Jalen Hurts, you had to keep Jordan Matthews just because you didn't know what you had. Because you didn't get Jalen Hurts in OTAs to even get a look at him in shorts.
Right.
To even see, if he it could have been, oh God, he ain't even ready in shorts. So it could have possibly been that. So to me, Jordan Matthews, I think is, although it bugs me because I've been very consistent on this podcast saying, with a team that struggles in the red zone, you can't ignore 16 out of 22 career touchdowns of Jordan Matthews came in the red zone. You cannot ignore that. That's production. That's history is past results are a dictation of future events are a dictation of past results.
Past results, yes.
Past results are a dictation. Whatever
y'all know what I mean. Y'all know what I mean.
Yeah. So exactly. So it's been a very long day for us. So essentially what it comes down to Kendrick Bourne and Richie James, and honestly, even though it pains both of us to say that, is I just cut Richie James. Who's our kick returner? Right. Who's our punt returner?
Are you going to throw Dante in there?
Yeah, I'm not throwing in.
After what you saw the last year?
Literally, I was there the game. The play he got hurt on was a punt return. You're not going to see, if Dante Pettis is out there, in my opinion, if you see Dante Pettis and it's not a, hey, let's get the all-time touchdown leader in NCAA, punt return history. Let's get him out there. We need a touchdown. We got 4 seconds left. This is our last shot. Hey, let's do it.
Right.
Unless it's that type of scenario. If I see Dante Pettis, that's like them trying to find a reason to keep him on the football team, I feel. If you see Dante Pettis consistently back there returning punts, that to me is not a good sign for him as a receiver, personally.
Well, it's interesting you say that because we all know, as hardcore Niner fans, we all know these guys when they come in and what they're about. So when he came out of Washington, a year ago, when Dante Pettis came out of Washington, he was more so slotted as a special teams guy than a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, that's kind of his draft profile was kind of what I had taken from that. And then as he came into camp, as he showed up even week 1 with that throw, we were talking about from Jimmie G against the Vikings, all this stuff, we started realizing, okay, well, I mean, not started realizing, obviously, the coaching staff and Kyle Shanahan, they know he can play wideout, but it kind of showed the fans, he can do something as wideout in this league. And so I want to touch on this with you. We were talking about Dante Pettis. I know we've seen a lot of criticism on Dante Pettis lately. I think that's the thing about Dante is the fans almost didn't expect it from him, and then when he showed it last year, now they're saying, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
I think people have, look, as I clearly have said, and we'll go ahead and move on, away from the receivers after this, but as I said, look, he'll be productive. Mm-hmm. He'll put up his numbers. He'll have his catches, and everything like that. But if you think he's coming the next Jerry Rice, if you think that, look, would I go and make the first receiver off the 9? Would I make Dante Pettis the first receiver? I'm not a big fantasy player. I don't play fantasy football, but getting in, and so, Harrison could probably speak to this more, but I wouldn't Dante Pettis wouldn't be the first player I would take in a fantasy draft from the Niners.
Well, and
not the first receiver.
Well, and again, interesting you say, but you just said you don't play fantasy football. Yeah. You're saying that? I'm a diehard fantasy football player. I've been playing for years. I know my stuff. I'm not taking Dante. I love my Niners, but until I see that,
I would take Jalen Hurd. I would take Debo over anybody personally. I mean, maybe that shows you how little I know about fantasy, but I personally, because I just think he'll be a yak monster. I mean, literally in the notes, Harrison literally wrote down in Debo's notes, yak monster.
Yeah.
Like, we literally have it, like, just a big bold, yak monster. So, now going on to AC, and we'll go through AC, we'll go through Tarvarius Moore, and we'll go through Dre Greenlaw, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. But we essentially differ. I think we've seen AC's last snaps in red and gold. I think that I think he was a curse of his own success. He came in, we fell in love with him over those 5-game stretch and everything. But I think what it shows, and I'm not. What concerns me is what people forget is they brought him in as a corner, and the only reason that he moved to free safety was because Jimmie Ward got hurt.
Right.
And so the fact is that they're not even trying him at corner, kind of makes me think that they're not trying to find a reason to keep him around. Mm. Like, if they were trying to find a reason, like, hey, Adrian Colbert's a good football player, and you can't have, regardless of position, you can't have too many good football players on your team.
Right.
Then I think you would try to find any way to keep him on the field. The fact that he's not seeing any reps at corner makes me think that they're not, they're just almost giving him enough. I heard Brian Peacock from Locked On 49ers say this today with Kendrick Bourne. And they're almost giving him enough rope to hang himself. Mm. So, so they're almost giving him enough run so that he could put it on tape enough that he's just not,
not just there, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the expectations, AC got, like I said, was a victim of his own success because, let's be real, he was a 7th-round pick. And so, do you expect perennial Pro Bowler from, a 7th-round draft pick? Not saying that AC shouldn't have gone higher or whatever. I've never met an NFL player that thinks that they shouldn't have gone higher.
Right.
Me personally.
Right.
If you talk to every, NFL player, they'll tell you that they should have gone higher. That's just part of being an NFL player. You got to believe you're that alpha dog. Tarvarius Moore, I'll let you go ahead and get into this one a little bit more. He starter. You bring in Jimmie Ward when Jimmie Ward's cleared, or you let Tarvarius Moore, you ride the hot hand and say, you know what? If he got from Robert Saleh literally telling the media he's nowhere close to being an NFL caliber safety by week 1, like I listened to the press conference. He literally said those exact words. He's making us talk about it. If he's gone from that in a few practices then
plus the preseason,
and all that,
right.
and you're still feeling positive, and you're not seeing things that are making you think that he's not ready. Sure, he's making his mistakes and everything like that. That's fine, but trial by fire, baby. But do you have him, or do you bring? Because my thing about it is Jimmie Ward's, and then I'll let you say it after this. Jimmie Ward's injury history makes me want to keep him a backup anyway.
Right.
Because what's the easiest way to have Jimmie Ward on the field, or at least available? Don't have him play.
Start him on less reps.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So don't have him play. Is the best and obviously our best 11. So if Tarvarius Moore gives me a wash from Jimmie Ward, and I can think of worse free safeties on this team, and maybe even in the league, that I'd rather have him coming off my bench than Jimmie Ward.
Okay. See, and I like this because this is where we kind of not necessarily disagree, but have a little bit different, thought processes on this. I think that this offseason, when, there's a little bit of hype surrounding Earl Thomas coming to the Bay, maybe reuniting with Sherm, etc.
I thought it was a done deal.
Right, a lot of people did. And then when that didn't go through, okay, are we signing Honey Badger? Are we signing? Who are we signing? Are we getting safety, Trey Boston? Even a couple of weeks ago, everybody's saying, Eric Berry, Trey Boston. Like, why are these guys unsigned? The Niners, what are you doing? I think with the Niners not spending money there that we clearly have, we could, or like look at the Jason Verrett deal. Or these, the Jordan Matthews deal. These 1 year short term, low money.
Prove it deals, basically.
Prove it deals, low risk for the Niners.
Yeah,
the Niners have
very low risk.
No risk here. Those kind of deals. We could have easily done that with a safety. And the fact that John Lynch didn't do that kind of tells me, okay, I see something in Jimmie Ward and or Tarvarius Moore at the safety position, more specifically at the free safety position, right? Because we have Tart at the strong
and Marcel Harris at the strong. Exactly. I love Gator bait. Let's go Gators. I love me some Marcel Harris. I still want to get his autograph on my Gator shirt. I still haven't gotten that. Marcel, if you're watching, autograph my Gator shirt, bruh. But so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here pretty quick. I mean, I think that's exactly what it is. And see, this is my thing about Jimmie Ward. Is Mr. Glass, whatever nicknames we all give him and everything like that. But to survive from the Harbaugh coaching staff, Tom Sula coaching staff,
right.
Chip Kelly coaching staff, and now 3 years, and brought back by Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch.
Well, let me ask you, who's the other main player that comes to mind that did that on the Niners now?
Joe
Staley.
Yeah.
So obviously John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan see something in Staley and hey, you guys stayed through all of this and you didn't.
So that is my thing about Jimmie Ward is you don't go through that many coaching staffs. Now we all know Bulky essentially had control of the roster. So as far as I know,
right, there was less. That's the rumors that there was less working together and more of him at the top. Right? Yeah.
And so, he wasn't about to cut a first rounder. Jimmie Ward wasn't about to. But still, if you don't survive through that many coaching staff, and what really proves this point to me is they brought him back.
Right.
They didn't have to. That they had every reason,
I thought they were going to let him walk.
Yeah, so they brought him back. So not that many coaching staffs, to me, personally,